Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Emotional Entrepreneur Show with Summer and
Jen.
Yay! Here we are. Here we are. We love our Tuesdays with y'all. So, welcome. And today we're going to be talking about engaging and influencing the powering your brand through communication. I can't wait to talk about this subject. There's so much to cover here. And I want to welcome everybody who is joining us on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and YouTube. Woo-hoo, Jen.
Yeah, I always love conversations about communication.
Yeah.
Because, in anything you do, especially in personal relationships, it's everything, right? It's being able to understand each other, that you're on the same page. And then, because when you're not, then there's obviously miscommunication. And then that's when it can get cringy or get ugly, because then people don't feel seen or heard. And then there's like misunderstanding, misinterpretation, and then it's just all downhill.
Oh, absolutely. Well, yes, yes, and yes. And guess what happens when you don't communicate well through business or trying to explain what your brand is?
Exactly.
It's not going to be great. It's going to be confusing, right? So, if they don't understand you, if your audience doesn't understand you, and you don't understand who your audience is, and you don't have a clear brand voice, what is going to happen? Right?
Yeah, exactly that.
So have you ever seen somebody's company where you're just like, what is that?
Every day.
Okay, tell us. Yes, you're the one who sees the stuff because, Jen, you're a graphic designer. You've been out in this world, this graphic design world, and the entertainment business and all these different arenas. You help, financial companies. You help so many different countries along the spectrum of business. What are some of the things that you've seen where we're not communicating well? We're not communicating our brand well. We're not engaging, we're not influencing because our brand, whether it is the logo, whether it is our messaging, whether it is our storytelling, what is happening where we're not connecting with our consumer, our granular market, like who our demographic is? What's going on?
I think a lot of times people are writing content or emails or doing a video. It's coming from only their perspective and not thinking about what is being received on the other end. And a lot of times,
Oh, that's good.
I see people get caught up in the conversation in their head and the knowledge. And whenever I'm sitting down with somebody, especially like CEOs, and helping them with their messaging, I'm like, thank goodness I usually have like a backstory or I have some history so I understand what's supposed to be conveyed. And I have to stop and go like, okay, I understand you get that and I get that, especially because I work with very technical companies like in the financial industry. And I'm like, that makes sense to us, but if this email is going to the investors or the people that aren't behind the scenes, like the portfolio manager, we can't say it this way. So it's always important to understand, how is the information you're putting out there being received on the other end? Is it in regular terms, especially if you are in a very technical industry? Is it very clear? Are you using jargon? Are you just kind of saying things where there are so many missing pieces in the middle? It's just not making sense. I mean, think about how many times you've seen people do a video or even a reel, and you're even watching it for maybe 10, 20 seconds, and you're just like, I don't even know what they're talking about. And it's just confusion, or you don't even know, or there's no good hook, or there isn't a good introduction of what it is. And we are so impatient that if you are already losing people in those first few seconds, and this is regardless if it's video or even in a post, if it's so confusing and people don't know what it is, they're going to scroll on, they're going to keep on moving, and then you won't have an opportunity to like, oh, wait, let me explain. It's so important that the messaging is very clear.
Sorry, Mike. I put thank you for hoping us. I was like, I meant joining us.
Thank you for helping us.
Let Let's keep hoping. So no, exactly, Jen. When people don't understand through your message, your hook, I love what you said there. If they're just not getting you, and you're not hooking them, or you don't know who your demographic is, or who your market is, or if you're confused yourself, guess what? It's really going to confuse the people.
If you don't know, they're not going to know.
They're not going to know. Not at all. And Mike says, clear communication strikes again. That's right. So, I think that to understand what you're putting out there, you also have to understand what your passion is, what your why is. Go back to your business plan. And when you look at your business plan and you look at your mission, you look at your vision, you look at your values, you look at your why, you look at, what are the pain points you're trying to address? Why are you speaking to these people anyway? And are you passionate about what you're saying? And are you clear? Are you cogent? Are you making a clear and definitive, hey, folks, this is who I am, and this is what I have to offer you? And are you catching them in seconds? Because Jen's right, they'll keep scrolling if you're not catching their attention. So it's, what are their needs? Have you done, and we mentioned this before, have you done your research on your market? What are their needs? What are their desires? What are their pain points? What are you doing to benefit them? One of the things that I got clear about early on in posting things and creating things and writing things, I wanted to put out my about, like who I am. I wanted people to get to know me. But honestly, people, I don't know if they care so much about all the points about you. They care about what's going to benefit them, how you're going to help them, how you're going to help reduce costs, energy, all of these different things that they don't have enough of in their day, or enough of to stretch so many different ways. So how is your offering, how is your service going to benefit them quickly, expediently, same thing, but it's like in more along the lines of really targeting what their needs are. How are you doing that, Jen?
One thing you mentioned that I'm glad you did was about like, our credentials. And I
Yeah.
think there's a time and place for it. So for example, like when I wrote the book, I knew that the bio was going to be in the back of the book, and that's fine. There's a place for it. But when I was putting content, I didn't always repeat, oh, this is where I done and this is my title. It's just like, who cares? Like they care and they don't.
Right.
And one, I will tell you, I do a lot of I listen to a lot of podcasts, a lot of interviews and whatnot. And I will tell you, one of the biggest mistakes I see people when they do their bio, they focus on all this stuff and all their credentials. And I do this and I do this and I do this. It's like 10 seconds of that.
Yeah.
And barely will they ever mention specifically how they're helping possibly the target audience or the listeners.
Yeah.
And there was so much time spent on rattling off the titles and credentials. And again, there's a time and place for it. But when you're on a podcast, for example, or you're getting introduced, and if it's not just a written bio, one of the things I think that's something we can all work on is you only got a few seconds sometimes. The podcast, and Summer, you're a podcast host.
Yeah.
How does it feel when you are reading like a book of somebody's thing? It's like it should just be this blurb of like how does this guest or how does this person help? Like in 2 sentences, the audience wants to know, what is it that you do that can help me or helps me if I happen to be the perfect client or the perfect potential client or demographic. But way too often I see people, because I think there's a little bit of ego. There's a little bit of like, let me tell you what I do because, this is this. But at the end of the day, people want to hear, what is it that you do that is helping me or that can help me? I mean, think about how many times you have heard a bio and that caught your ear, like, oh, they help business owner 10x their income. That's what's going to stick out, not, oh, you went to this school and got that credential, So I think we just have to be careful sometimes with the information that we're focusing on, especially when it comes to, the content. if we are going to talk about ourselves, I think there's a time and place for all that. But if it's way too much, way too long, and then you don't even talk about how you help others, you're going to lose people because
Yeah.
they're more interested in what you can do for them.
Totally. Mike says, I once listened to a video where the first 2 to 3 minutes was spent introducing the speaker, going through their bio and credentials. Drove me nuts. Now, here's what I got to say.
I'm going to say real quick. I agree. I'm like 10 seconds into it. And if it's still going on what you do, I'm going nuts. I'm like, get to the point already.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, like in my case, the reason why I initially did it was because I wanted to make sure people knew what I did so that I could help them. Like it was done with sincerity. But I know that you can come up with a good lead line, so that you can do it very succinctly in 1 or 2 sentences.
Yeah.
And in those 1 or 2 sentences, you can also, even though you're telling people about who you are, you can tell people about how you're helping them. So I think that, Jen, that is what I was saying. Get to the point. Right. And I think people are very they don't have a lot of time. So if you're going to listen to a podcast or you're going to watch a YouTube show, 1, 2 sentences with that lead line. And sometimes people give me like a whole page, like a resume. And I know they've done a lot of different things. And I can put that in the content though. I can put that down below and I can put that in, maybe a story or maybe wrap that into, but put that in your content. You can put links in your content. You can put a lot of different things down below the post. You don't necessarily have to do a whole page of introductions because yes, that will drive people crazy because what they're really there for is whatever that hook was for that YouTube, for that podcast, they were interested in what that was. So talk about that. Have a lead line. And with that lead line, not just your hook, but your lead line, you can summarize what it is that you do and how you help people. So developing that clear communication, speaking to those pain points. But here's another thing that I want to offer too is speak to their hearts. I think a lot of times when you speak to somebody's heart, you see it in a 30-second commercial, a 20-second commercial. If you're paying $2 million or $3 million for a Super Bowl ad, guess what? We're going to go straight to the heart. Why? Because that's where you're going to connect and that's where people are going to remember. And so when I listen to, and I don't even care for beer, but when I'm watching a beer commercial about Clydesdales and a little puppy and they're going straight to my heart and they're connecting with me, I'm like, I'm going to remember what brand that is.
Right.
It's Budweiser, right? So it's like, immediately, Mike says, Summer, right. I had an idea of the speaker already. That's why I tuned in. Exactly. And so people are going to tune in because here's another thing, and I'm going to kind of piggyback off what Mike just said here. You've already created a relationship with people on social media. Are you doing that? Are you creating those relationships? Are you personalizing those communications just like we do here, just like we do on, LinkedIn? I know that, Jen, you've used Facebook quite a bit. You personally connect with people. You have really good laughs. You share some of your professional things that you do as well as on Facebook, but then you shifted to LinkedIn. Tell us a little bit more why and the communication there and why you feel like that was really, you could be effective in your communication, your branding, and influence people there too.
Yeah, I think well for me it was identifying, who are the people that I want to connect with. And they're on LinkedIn, like event planners and people like that. So for me that was important. And plus, it was a platform I hadn't been active on. And then I was like, okay, let me pick one platform. And I have heard this so many times, and this is like so true with what I'm going through right now. I can't do it all on everything. Like I my Instagram is suffering, but I'm like all in on LinkedIn. And that is just taking off like crazy because I study the analytics and I'm just like, wow, what a difference.
Yeah.
And then, Facebook is always there. Facebook is a very easy platform for me to just kind of get on and whatever it does well. I put something about CJ, my son, and then 200 likes. It's easy, whatever. I should hire him. But it's like going on LinkedIn was very intentional, and the kind of posts and the topics and whatnot, and it's just a different. It's not, one is not better than the other. I know people who make a lot of money on different platforms, so you have to find the one that works for you. Because some people will say like, well, it's you should be doing this one. You need to do the one that your people are at, that you enjoy posting on, that you enjoy the interaction that you're getting with people. I definitely enjoy the interaction on LinkedIn like 1,000 times more. I feel like the ROI on the amount of time it takes to post on LinkedIn is far greater. That's what's working for me. Not so much on Instagram. But then again, a lot of my effort isn't there right now, and it's kind of like testing. That's the thing with messaging and engagement and posting and content creation. It's a lot of testing. And I think one of the biggest things I will say is that we need to also not take things so personally. Oh, this one only got 4 likes. There are things I post and the algorithm doesn't shoot it out. It could be the dumbest little silliest thing that I'm commenting on. God bless you, Mike. Sometimes it's just you that commented.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's just Mike. But and then I step back and go like, okay, that didn't do too well, or the algorithm didn't push it out. And then I'm looking at it. What did I include in here? Was there, if there was a graphic, was there too many words? I'm looking at it from feedback standpoint.
Yeah.
I don't get all butthurt because, it didn't do well. I look at it like, okay, that one did really well. I'm also paying attention to, okay, what time did I post this? Like, you don't ever post things when people are sleeping. I think that's another mistake I've seen people. They share it and I'm like, why did you repost this at 12 in the morning? Like, nobody's looking at this, maybe but 3 people that are awake with you. It's, you got to be strategic and intentional about when you're doing things. What are you saying, and things like that. But I have just found it is so much fun on LinkedIn. And it has introduced me to other people in areas that I wanted to connect with, and it's just a different kind of community. I know people often will use the word it's professional. It's professional. It is and it isn't. I think what's great about LinkedIn is there's an intentionality to really build community and connect and help each other, as opposed to the other platforms. They have a different kind of, it has its own different vibe, its own community, its own brand. So you got to go to what you like. Some people's jam is YouTube. Some people just absolutely love Instagram. I love Facebook. Some people hate Facebook. So you do you and what works for you. Some of your people might be on Facebook. I know Mike does an amazing job, and he does it from his backyard and he's broadcasting on Facebook.
Nice.
So you got to do what works for you, and then you got to look if it's working. But if you're kind of just haphazardly doing it, how are you knowing if it's working well or if it's increasing or not? And for me, like, I literally have a spreadsheet. I look at all the numbers. I put in the percentages. I see I see what went down, what went up, and the difference between each week. So I know exactly what's working, what's not working, and I'm seeing the progress. And so that's how intentional I am about it. But I've seen the big difference when I'm looking at it and tracking it, because that what they say, what gets measured gets improved.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to speak to that too. So I am also on TikTok, and it's funny because most of my posts, get anywhere, if they're related to core women, if they're related to the emotional entrepreneur, they're going to get anywhere from 400 to 800 likes. If they have to do with my personal stuff, 25, 35. It is throwing it out in a different way. If it's not consistent messaging, if it isn't, valuable content for the consumer, they're not liking it.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, okay, I even put on my title, you know, such and such coach, Dr. Da da, this is a place for fun, da da da, right? No, what speaks to the people that are on my page are this content right here, the coaching, and it I can see and I'm tracking it. And here's the other thing, you have to look at when you're putting out posts where are your followers coming from. It could be at midnight that you're posting something because you might have a lot of European followers, or you might have followers in different countries, and that is absolutely okay. You just need to be aware of who you're marketing to and at what times, right? So you track that. That's all in the analytics. So what Jen said about, posting at midnight. Well, some people might post at midnight because you're going to be able to track that based on the influx and the curve that you're looking at related to whether that curve's going up or down. And so, and I think that's really important because I've been on LinkedIn for a long time and using it. I don't really use Facebook all that much. Jen knows it drives me absolutely bonkers. Bonkers. So it's like I don't get any leverage there. And it could be that it's my investment on that platform, whatever it is, but I'm not willing because, like Jen said, we have to assess where you're at and how much time and energy and effort you're going to put into something. If there is one of me right now, I need to look at what platforms I want to spend my time on because I enjoy Instagram. I very much enjoy LinkedIn and the relationships that I have built on both platforms. Now, I used to use Twitter, which is now X, and I built a lot of great relationships on there as well. But what I noticed is that I started to get a lot of, I was fraying and I was getting really split on doing this, doing that, doing this. Already posting takes time, scheduling posting takes time. So I think getting really clear about what's working for you, what you really are passionate about, what platforms you really like, try them out, figure it out. Make those connections, see how quickly those connections are being made, and how people are supporting one another. And like I always told Jen, I'm like, I love LinkedIn. And she's like, now I get it. Yeah, and she started using it, and I was like, see, it's so great.
Yeah.
There's so many wonderful people.
The growth is amazing there. And then it's just so much easier to connect with people.
Yeah.
It's just like way easier. It just is. I don't know how to explain it. It's almost like on a daily basis, you're constantly connecting with people, and it just feels more supportive.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And here's what Mike says. Very true, Summer. For some of what I do, I will make a post late in the evening because people across the country who follow me and will see it first thing in the morning. So yeah, it tracks result. I track the results. And that's what we're saying here. Whatever time, whatever platform, please track your results because as Jen said, as you track your results, you'll see what's doing well, what kind of posts, what kind of content, what kind of communication, whether or not it's video, it's a blog, it's a graphic, it's a social media, live. Track it and see how well you're doing and see what's working for you and see ways, maybe try different ways to change your language to influence your consumer, to influence your target market. So look at your visual content. Jen can speak to that. What is that visual content meaning? What's the intent behind your visual content, Jen? So when we put something on, such as an image, such as a video, such as an infographic, what are we showing? What's the intent? What should be the intent?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
I think it's important to understand, what is your intent? Think about it. Are you selling something? Are you sharing something? Are you sharing credibility? Are you trying to build connection? Are you trying to garner engagement? All those different ways and those promptings are going to help you determine how are you going to curate whatever it is, and try to keep it simple. I think sometimes the other thing I see too is people are cramming way too much into one post. Like spread it out. And don't worry, oh, I'm posting too much. Really, there's no such thing.
Yeah.
There's no such thing. I mean, big companies are putting out multiple posts a day. So stop worrying if your 3 a week is overkill. It's not. It's not enough actually. But for those of you who are like, I don't like posting, well, that's a whole different topic. But
Yeah.
think about simplicity. I think that's, you know, and from a visual standpoint, do not use more than 3 fonts. I think that's one of my biggest design pet peeves. I see people like using 5 billion fonts. You're trying to put every dang thing in the entire square. You're trying to occupy every nook and cranny. It's like, stop. It's too much to read. You know, think about, I love this analogy I heard one time where imagine if I took a bucket and threw like 50 tennis balls at you. How many are you realistically going to be able to catch? Maybe 3, if you're lucky, maybe 4, and you're just kind of going like this. And it's the same thing with the way that our brain is taking in information. If you're throwing like 5 different fonts and you got every picture there and this is messy collage with all kinds of writing, it's almost like painful to the brain, right? And then it's just like, I don't want to look at this. And I've studied this. I actually did a presentation on this. I did a workshop on this for a friend of mine that does branding and media. And, you know, I gave examples and they were just like, oh my gosh, yes, that was a really painful flyer to look at, you know. And just even simple things. Don't get crazy with filters in terms of like, you can make the text fancy and neon and then drop shadow. And it's like, keep it simple and clean. Keep it, you know, it's also about readability, legibility. You know, sometimes I see some of the coaches out there, you want to get crazy with some of those handwritten fonts, can't even read them. So now I don't even know what you do. So first, just test it. Like, is this easy to read? Remember, people are scrolling. Unless you have a really compelling, you know, picture that's going to catch somebody's eye to make the scroll stop. You know, avoid using all kinds of crazy fonts and illegible fonts and all those handwritten fonts in Canva. And then also the tininess, you know, be careful. If there's like a paragraph, like what is the point? It's like 4-point type at that point. Take out a sentence or two if there was a paragraph that it came from and just highlight that little piece. But when you're trying to fit too much, just break it up into 3 other posts and, you know, have it like a carousel or something. But trying to put everything in this tiny like 800 by 800 square, it's not going to help because I mean, you can't even read it. So those are just some things to think about. I mean, there's a lot of things from a you know, design aesthetic point of view to take into consideration, but those are some of the basic ones.
I love that. Thank you so much. That's really helpful because it really helps messaging. It really helps readability. It really helps like the visual, right? And so, and I am guilty of that. You can look at some of my graphics and I try and stick all their stuff in there. And I just love what they have to say. And I'm like, oh my God.
Highlight one sentence.
I know.
That's your new homework, girl. Don't put their entire bio. Pick one sentence that was like, wow, that was so good. Because her guests have amazing stories.
Oh,
there's a billion nuggets. So just pick 1 or 2 nuggets. And that's enough to draw somebody in. But that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, you already thought of a great way.
You know, and see, and I recognize this in myself, and then I struggle. I have this internal struggle, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And here's the other thing. Okay, I'll tell you an internal struggle for me originally too. It was looking at somebody's post and seeing 1 sentence paragraphs, right? And it was like, from an English major's perspective, a short paragraph can be made up of 3 sentences, but 1 sentence, it's like a bullet, right? And yet when I see it now, it works. It really, really works. And the one person I'm going to give a shout out here, Claudia Wyatt, she started doing it. And I started reading her post and it separates the sentences. And I thought, oh my gosh, it makes it so much easier to read. And I'm getting the impact of her story, even though it's 1 sentence space. And it may make the post a little longer, but it really works. And I'm like, wow, okay. I don't know. Your thoughts, Jen?
Yeah, I think what's hard for people like you, where you have learned the technical style, that's a challenge because you're used to it being in a very research written way, and that's just not how it is on social media. So it might drive you crazy. It's like, and I'm constantly when we're doing work, I'm like bullets,
Yeah.
pieces of sentences. So it's like I'm making Summer crazy because
No, you're not.
I'm telling
You're
her to
not.
break every grammar rule. And trust me, like I'm a good writer, but I know because I'm also a designer how I have had to break up information and use
Yeah.
sentence fragments. I don't put periods at the end of bullet points. I take out the formality because people don't read like that.
Yeah.
And it's from a visual standpoint. I'm gonna tell you, once when I see these blocks, it's like, man, I came in here to read a pose, not a dissertation.
Yeah.
And I will get maybe through the first paragraph and then I'm gone. I'm just like, all right, like Mike says, get to the point. It's not getting to the point. I don't want to read the 1,000 word post.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm done. I just it's just too much. There's no that's what I'm saying too. There's no visual breakup
Yeah.
of the information, and it's like we have to get out of our mind that I need to have it all perfect, and this style, it's totally irrelevant. And I don't should say totally, for most people in the social media world, it is like we are trying to watch reels at 10-second pace.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody got time to read the whole research paper.
Yeah.
So
So,
it's something to yeah, you gotta kind of
but
like,
Jen doesn't drive me crazy, by the way. She actually just reminds me, right? And I'm like, okay, yeah. Because like on my own personal post, I'll do that. I'm like, oh yeah, let's break this up. That's kind of cool. Because I've learned through reading. But then I'm like doing something else. I'm like, oh, that's right. Yeah, okay, we'll do that. So when you actually go back to the paper that I created last night, Jen, you'll see what I did. So you'll love it. Trust me, you'll love it.
oh, you add some spaces.
I
Yay.
did. I added a lot of spaces. Anywho, we all work on things. We work on things every day. And let me read what Mike said. Jen, Summer, are there any good resources you would recommend for getting started on LinkedIn? Oh, Mike, just start. I would say some of the people that I would absolutely follow, Claudia Wyatt, she's a great writer. Jump on board, tag me when you post something, that you find that we have a common interest in, tagging people that not over tagging. Some of the other tips are if you know people already that, start following them, start making great comments, start connecting in the DMs and just saying, how's your day? Different things like that will really make a difference to let people know that you're there, that you are available on that platform, that you're engaging. Be your authentic self because you're awesome, right? And nobody's Mike, nobody's Jen, nobody's Summer. And so, put up a visual, put up a short video, maybe an introduction about, how you can help others, or, some funny anecdotal story. You just have to find your groove, because honestly, I have people who put up YouTube videos that are great and inspirational, and they're doing gangbusters. If I put that up, it's not me, right? People know what I put out. So just develop something that is authentically you, that you feel comfortable with. And with some of these tips, knowing your audience, developing a clear brand voice, your communications, giving space to that content, right? Following up with people is a huge thing on LinkedIn. So if you follow up with people and actually comment on their things, or if they comment on your stuff, make sure you follow up with that. Don't just give it a like, but give it a few words and say, hey, I really appreciate you doing this. Share what other people are posting. What I truly believe is we're out there, and Jen knows this about me too. I love sharing what other people do. Because when you look at LinkedIn and some people might think, oh my gosh, it's really saturated here. There are too many coaches, but people have said it, and yet there's not. Because here's the thing.
Scarcity mindset. Scarcity mindset.
Scarcity mindset, but we're all doing things differently. We all have a different process. We help people in different ways. We all do things differently. This is just natural, normal behavior, right? I wouldn't even say scarce, like me, I wouldn't say scare. I would say more along the lines of they're seeing what's going on out there, and they haven't really identified their place yet. And so when you go back to your business plan, I think that's a really good start of knowing who you are, what your vision is, what your mission is, and really getting clear, and then writing your stories in different ways, right? Telling people who you are, because that's what, and I'll use Claudia as an example. She tells people stories. She's a great storyteller. And when she does tell her stories, I lean in because I'm like, oh, I like the way she tells a story. I like the way Jen does an infographic. I like the way Jen does carousels. I like the way Jen does certain things because we all do things differently. But when you find your niche, you find your groove, and you find what you're good at, do more of it. Jen?
Oh, I was doing Mike. I love what Mike's Karen, his wife, said. Give me the Twitter answer, not the Wikipedia answer.
Yeah, right?
I love that, Karen. But Mike, I was going to also ask or tell you, my suggestion would be take some of your content that you did in Facebook and just redo it. Just repost it. And yeah. I've done that many times. That's what's interesting. I'll take the same content and I'll put it on the different platforms on a different day, and I'll see how it did. So don't feel like you have to totally reinvent all the content just because you're in a different platform. You can totally repurpose it and see how it does, and just be consistent with the time of when you do it. It'll be easier to track what's working, what's not working. But I mean, with me knowing you and your posts, like I think it's great when you always share the kind of book you're reading. Mm-hmm. People are interested in like, what are you reading? Which I find interesting. Like people really like to know what other people are reading.
Yes, they do.
Funny. I'm like, what? And so, Mike, that's a great thing that you can start posting. Like, I'm currently reading this, and these are the biggest insights that I got from this book. What are your thoughts? Like, that's a great way to start posting in LinkedIn. Talk about the current book or, piece of literature that you're reading, and make a comment or like, yeah, you know what? These are the lessons that I got from this. What are your thoughts? And then that's a way that you can, invoke engagement on that post.
I love that. Asking the question, right? Ending with asking a question. So important to make sure you get a feed in to your stuff. I also think, Mike, there's your opportunity to do surveys on LinkedIn. Do surveys. Surveys really work for people as well. Jen, your nugget. I think you just gave a great one, by the way, but
I know. I think my nugget is keep it simple.
Yeah.
Especially if it's your content is you're feeling like you have to cram everything into that one thing. I want to encourage you. You don't have to keep the next couple posts simple and see if they increase engagement or views or likes, because it's now resonating with people because of the brevity. Here's a tip that one of my mentors told me. Even in explaining things, she said, use less words. Stop feeling like you have to over explain.
Yeah, love it.
How about you? Thank you.
I think this is really important. This is something that it's one of my values. When you're out there, be authentic. Be authentic to yourself. There's no one like you. There's no one as special and as unique. People want to get to know you. And that's who they're really going to connect with in the heart. They're going to connect with authentic Jen, authentic Summer, authentic Mike, right? And I noticed that when I do that, when I tell a story, when I get to, my husband, even Jen knows this, she loves my weekend getaways with my husband. Not even getaways, it's just a day trip. Those are a lot of fun. I'm just out there having a great time. Granted, it's not business, but at least people are getting to know who Summer is, right? And if you can incorporate that into a lesson learned or a story for the day or whatever the case may be, people want to get to know who you are. That's my nugget.
Yay!
All right. Thank you so much. I'm actually going to take my partner up on her tips because so important. Oh my God. Jen's like, oh, bullet Summer.
But don't worry about the writing stuff. She asked me that when I was writing something. I'm like, girl, I don't even know I didn't even study that stuff. I'm just writing it.
All right. If you've seen this and you like it and you think it'll help other people, please feel free to share. And we're going to do what we normally do. We're going to dance this out, and we're going to see you next Tuesday. Thanks, everyone, for joining us, whether or not you're on LinkedIn.
Love having you here.
Yes, absolutely. So join us on LinkedIn next week, YouTube, or on Instagram. All right. Thanks, everyone. Take care and leave your messages. Take care. Ciao.
Da, da, da.
Yay! Thank you. Bye, everyone. Mwah.